Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Feedback Friday. Today we got a video by Brenda Van de Ven.
Nailed it.
Brenda Van de Ven.
Nailed it.
This is a travel video shot on the Mavic Pro, the Canon 80D with kit lens, GoPro Hero 4, and a 7-NOK stabilizer. So an off-brand stabilizer. See how that looks. Here we go, Brenda. Travel video. 3, 2, 1, go. I like the sound. Loving the music so far. Let me point out first real quick. Awesome opening shot, very visual, establishes where we're at right away. Second shot is great, establishes I'm guessing in Brazil. I would have picked one of these two shots. I see you guys do this a lot. You'll have back-to-back shots of pretty much the exact same thing from a slightly different angle, unless there's something new that you're revealing with that new angle, or unless you're, shooting an interview or something where a second angle adds to it. I don't think this second angle adds much to it. It looks like a jump cut to me. They're pretty much the same thing, just one's right here, one's right there. It's kind of like you jumped between frames. Cool little speed ramp there, another good speed ramp. I like. Okay, I don't know what this was. A little bit disorienting there. I guess maybe the patterns are cool, but this is probably a shot I would have left out. This shot, let's talk about framing for a sec. So what is the dominant subject? We talk about this video 3.1 composition. What are we supposed to be looking at here? I'm guessing this is the subject, this cool face wall thing. But we have half the frame being taken up by this white cement foreground, which is fine to have foreground, but once you get past the foreground, you should have framed up in the center, or at least not being cut off, whatever is your subject. So first of all, the shot starts with it not moving, and then it shows them moving. So that's one big thing, is when you cut on these shots, cut with the shot already with the move already happening. In other words, if it's a push-in shot, don't show it static and then you beginning to start up and walk and then end it. You want to make sure that it's the whole shot's happening one fluid motion. I see that a lot too, where somebody will do a nice parallax and then they'll stop and then start coming back and then they'll cut. No, cut it before you stopped and started coming back the other way. So make it so it's just one fluid movement. But framing wise, let's put this a little bit more centered so we're not cutting off the face in this frame.
It adds so much energy when it's cut to the music. I think it's way good.
Yeah, good job cutting to music. Good music choice. Okay, once again, we have, I think, 3 shots back to back of the same thing with very slightly different angles. It's fine to show the same thing back to back, but you want to make sure the angles are distinctly different. In other words, have a tight shot, a wide shot, a medium shot, instead of 3 wide shots that are just a little bit different. Does that make sense? So watch these back to back. Pretty wide but higher. Pretty much the same wide shot from a little bit more to the right. So you had 3 shots in a row that weren't really closer or farther away. One was a little bit higher, one was a little bit farther to the right. So you have 3 shots back to back that are slightly different. It's okay to have those 3 shots in the video maybe, but space them out so that they're not back to back to back. Just looks kind of jump cutty. I would have just picked one of them. Again, right here, we're started, stopped, and then we start pulling back. Same thing on that one. So make it all one fluid motion. All right, a little bit overexposed on some of these shots. Overall exposure has looked great, but let's look at this shot right here. The water is completely blown out, and I talk about this in other Feedback Fridays. With DSLRs, with drones, they're gonna have a harder time retaining highlights than they are retaining shadows. So if you're going to expose incorrectly, error on the shadows. In other words, underexpose a little bit and bring back the shadows in post, versus overexposing and blowing out the highlights. You can't bring that stuff back.
I feel like it's tougher to get good exposure with drone.
Look at your histogram. I always look at my histogram when I'm on a drone. That will show you if it's more on the dark side or the light side. I always err on the dark side, especially with drones and smaller sensor cameras that have terrible dynamic range. These drones do not have good dynamic range, which means they can't retain both highlights and shadows. If you're going to give up one of them, give up the shadows, crush them a little bit to retain the highlights, and then you can bring up those shadows a little bit in post. I like the flow of the edit, keeping us moving along, keeping it engaging. Again, overexposed here. Let me bring this in so I can show you guys what we're talking about. All right, so if we bring this in, let's check out our Lumetri scopes. If you guys aren't using Lumetri scopes, it's very similar to your histogram when you're filming. It just tells you if your overall image is too bright or too dark. All right, so here is our image, and this right here is your Lumetri scopes that's reading 100 meaning overexposed, 0 meaning underexposed, meaning you're crushing shadows, overblowing highlights. So you see overall your information is leaning very heavily in the bright direction, and you have this red line right here that just says lost information, completely blown out white. We don't have anything left here. And look, nothing is on the 0, meaning nothing's even dark enough. You want some stuff touching 0. You should have some things in your image that are on 0, because that means you're going to have contrast. You can't really save a lot of this, but we'll try. If you bring your highlights down,
Whoa.
you can see you can recover some of that, but a lot of this is just gone. Information you can't get back, and that's what that red line means, is you're not getting that back. So you can do this in your basic color correction. You can also do this in your curves. So let's turn off the basic correction. This is your highlights. Here's your shadows. Let's bring down the highlights. See how it's bringing down that red line up there? Now, because it's blown out, even though it's bringing it down, it doesn't necessarily look good. But that's how you'd bring that down. So yeah, bring down the highlights. I'd probably bring down our shadows a little bit too. Actually, what we'll do is I would also bring down your overall exposure. So if you bring down like so, that's going to bring down your black level until you see your Lumetri scopes are starting to hit that bottom line there. So that's probably where I would have put it, right there. And then you can play with your curves a little bit inside to get all that information in the middle, more so in the middle, not so much leaning towards, the top there. Now, obviously, a lot of this information is already gone, so it's not going to look very good, even though I've already corrected it. So yeah, you could have fixed it a little bit in post to make this look like a better exposure, but I mean, overall, we're seeing a lot of blown out stuff that just doesn't look good in there. So 1, fix it while you're shooting, expose that correctly, or 2, don't use that in your edit if you see you've ruined a shot with bad exposure. One other thing to look at here is you'll notice that the only color that's touching the top here is red. That means that your red is dominant in your highlights. So what you'd want to do is bring down that overall exposure until those reds are meeting up with those blues and greens a little bit more. Now, because it's all blown out, it's just not really recoverable, but you get the idea. To use your temperature and tint to balance out those colors a little bit better. Anything that's white, which this whole thing's white right here, you want those colors to be more in line instead of having one color. See how the red goes clear to the top, the more red you get. Green comes up to the top as you push the greens in. So you just want to balance those out as best you can. Obviously use your eye too, but clearly reds are dominant in the highlights there before. Back to the edits. Some acai bowl, some crab delish. Little sound effect there. Looks like it's coming from the GoPro.
Yeah, sound design's been good throughout the whole video.
Good job working in the sound. Yeah. Again, drone is stopped. It shows it starting up and going. Cut it so that it starts when it's already in motion. and before it stops. A little bit too fast on this guy here. As we're zooming past this, it just gets kind of jittery. Kind of hard to look at there. Lots of variety of content. Awesome job, Brenda, and getting out there and capturing a lot of different stuff in
Go to
Brazil.
Brazil. Take me to Brazil.
Or maybe.
Please. Please.
Yeah, you're showing so much that it makes it feel like there's a lot to do there, and that's what you want to do with these travel videos is, you know, spend 2 weeks there, travel the entire country, and make it feel like you can do it all in a day.
And it's easy to watch because you know you're going to be seeing new things.
Yep, you're introducing new elements throughout the video, so I talk about that a lot, where it's important to continue introducing new things to the video, and you're doing a great job of that. A random production. Okay, that last that title coming in was a little abrupt for me. All right, so we have the shot comes in the exact same time as the title. What I would have done is have the shot come in first and then fade in, or on the beat hit it in, or have an After Effects animation of it coming in. Whatever you do, I don't usually like the titles to come on at the same time as the clip. So that's my only feedback on the end there. But other than that, I thought you did an awesome job, Brenda. Again, lots of awesome content. Biggest thing I would say is exposure throughout the whole thing. A lot of overblown highlights. Watch your histogram. Go back and watch the exposure video. We talk about how to make sure your exposure is correct in camera by watching that histogram and keeping those highlights down. If you have to err on the underexposed side, you can bring those shadows back in post, but it's hard to bring back those highlights. But overall, awesome job.
I like how much work you put into like the edit. Like,
oh yeah,
with projects that I've worked on, I've seen that it's the editing that tells the story, and it's the editing that brings it to life and makes it like easy to watch. You can have the most complex, amazing clips filmed with the most amazing cameras, but if it's awfully edited, it's just a disaster. But there's a lot of put into that editing, to the music, to
super engaging.
I loved it. It was awesome.
Yeah, great editing skills. Loved it,
going.
Brenda. Awesome music choice. Way to cut on that beat. Only thing within editing I would say is starting and stopping shots. Let's just show us the middle chunk, the best in the middle there. But great job overall. If you guys have any further questions for me or for Tanner or for Brenda, please let us know.